let's face it, there are situations in our life that cause us stress and result in negative emotions. It may be a relationship with a friend or family member. Perhaps it's your work or a situation at work or relationship with someone at work. Sometimes it may even be our relationship with ourselves. Stories we tell ourselves, like, I'm not worthy, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not confident enough, or why does this always happen to me? Why do these circumstances happen to me? A lot of the times, the problem can be to do with our perception. If we could change our perception and the stories that we tell ourselves, we can better deal with these problems and reduce the amount of mental and physical stress that we put on ourselves. In this video, I want to share with you a simple 4-step process that can help you work through any difficult, challenging situations you may have and turn around your perception. So, let's get into it. Hey, it's Dr. Levi, your chiropractor, and I'm really excited to be sharing this training with you, where I'm going to take you through a process that can help change your perception. Now, it's often said that perception is reality. So if you can change your perception, you can change the way that you view your world, and your world could be a happier, less stressful, and better place for you to be in. So let's get to it. I think at the crux of a lot of stuff that happens with people is the stories that we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves many stories. We tell ourselves stories to make sense of the world, to make sense of our journey through it, and what is happening to ourselves. We sometimes tell stories to justify our behaviours. We tell stories to justify our circumstances. Now, the problem with that is a lot of times when we continue to tell ourselves a story, we fall into what we call a confirmational bias. And what this happens is this sets up a little bit of a loop. It sets up a loop where you tell yourself a story and your actions, your perceptions about what you choose to see from reality and everything like that will try to fit in to make that story come true. Because if that story doesn't come true, it's very unsettling for the brain. It's very unsettling for the subconscious mind. If your stories that you tell yourself don't match your reality, it's not a place that the body or the mind likes to be in. For example, you tell yourself a story that you are always unlucky. Well, you are going to search through your daily events, your weekly events, and you're going to look for the times that you are unlucky. And then you're going to just tell yourself that story again. Oh, didn't get a car park. Yeah, that's just because I'm unlucky. I never get, car parks because I'm an unlucky person. Oh, yeah, the line I stood in at the checkout, it just happens that she, happens to have a problem with the cash register, and now I'm held up here. Oh, this always happens to me because I'm unlucky. And you see, and we just continue to tell ourselves that story, and then we look for that confirmational bias to reinforce that story. So today's training is about changing the stories that we tell ourselves. So let's get into it. I call it the 4 questions, and I have to let you know off the bat, this is not my original work, all right? This is the work of Byron Katie. So a big disclaimer, and all credit must go to her, so this is not my work. Don't run around going, hey, my chiropractor Dr. Levi invented this really cool technique. This is the work of Byron Katie. Now, the 4-question protocol works like this. Get a piece of paper and write down your frustrations surrounding a subject, everything that you need to vent and get off your chest. And then you are going to work through this framework. So, firstly, let's go through the framework, and then I'll run through it with 2 examples so you can see how it unfolds and works. So, question number 1 that you're going to ask yourself. Is the statement that is annoying me, or the story that I'm telling myself, is the story true? Now, on the surface level, you're going to say, yes, of course it's true. This happens. This is what reality is. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Can you absolutely know that it's true? And this is where things start to shift. Can you absolutely know that it's true? Quite often, with the stories that we are telling ourselves, we cannot, with absolute certainty, know they are true. Now, for many people, that should be a massive paradigm shift. That should be reality starting to crumble. That the story that you have been telling yourself about life, about a certain person, about your circumstances, about you as a person, may not actually be true. Think about that, all right? This is the start of changing your perception. Let's move on. Question number 3. How do you react when you think that thought? So when you are stuck in that negative story, when you are telling yourself that false belief, how do you react? What emotions does it bring up? How does it change your interaction with people, with your life, with how you go about things on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? And lastly, who would you be without that thought? Massively empowering statement. Who would you be without that false story that you are telling yourself? In short, life would probably be a lot better. Okay? So let's run through it with 2 basic examples. I think probably the most common ones are our relationships or our judgment on a person and our relationship with ourselves, the story we tell about ourselves. So number 1, let's talk about a relationship with a person. You think that your boss, friend or relative is a jerk or a bitch or somebody who's nasty and mean. So I get my piece of paper and I vent everything I have to say about this person, that they are a nasty, mean person. Is it true? Absolutely it's true. This person is nasty and mean. Can you absolutely know it's true? Most of the time, I can't. I think they're nasty and mean. Some other people at work do, but I also see that they're married, they have friends, some other work colleagues think that they're okay, and they seem to get along well with some people. So I can't know with absolute certainty that they are nasty and mean. How do you react when you think that thought? Well, when I think they're nasty and mean, it makes me anxious, makes me frustrated, I get angry and I don't want to interact with them, and it just puts me on edge and it makes me feel uneasy. And I go through this every day while I'm at work with this person and anytime I have to have an interaction with them. Who would you be without that thought? Well, for starters, I'd be happier, I'd be less stressed, hey, I'd probably have a better time at work, I'd feel lighter and more productive and I wouldn't feel that I need to hide so much and try to avoid them. I wouldn't be afraid to voice my opinions so I could interact more with my work colleagues. I'd feel freer. I'd feel a lot better on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So there's a classic example of a relationship one. Another one that's probably one of the most common ones, the stories we tell ourselves. So I hear it every day on a daily basis surrounding things with health and sometimes a little bit more than that. But we've got to be really careful of the stories we tell ourselves. So common stories that people tell themselves are that, the poor me story. And the poor me story is like, the world is out to get me, all right? It's me versus the world, and my circumstances are a result of that. So, once again, I get my piece of paper, I have my good vent and write everything out, and then I think about this story I'm telling myself, that the universe, the world, is a nasty place that's against me and is out to get me. Is it true? You bet it is. My life is terrible because of X, Y, Z, and nothing ever goes right for me, and this always happens to me, and it must be the universe conspiring against me. It is true. Can you absolutely know it's true? Dig deep here. This is where the rubber meets the road. Can you absolutely know that this story is true? The story that the world is out to get me and the universe hates me and delivers all its evil towards me. Can I absolutely know that that is true? You have a good hard think about it, and most of the time you're going to say, I cannot know that it is absolutely true, that the world is against me. How do you react when you think that thought? Well, when I think the world is against me, it makes me really sad. It makes me depressed. I feel vulnerable. I feel a sense of hopelessness, that there's no point doing anything because nothing ever turns out right. And I feel that the circumstances of my life are really bad. They're never going to change. I'm alone. I'm isolated. It's me versus everything else. And life is really difficult and hard. Who would you be without that thought? If I let go of that thought, that the world was against me, wow, that would be awesome. I would think that I'm in control. I would think that I'm empowered and I can actually make a difference. I would look at the bad things that happen in my life and realize that, hey, bad things do happen and it's nothing personal. The world is not out to get me. Good things also can happen to me. And I would feel empowered to take control of my life and be back in the driver's seat. I wouldn't feel so depressed. I'd feel more motivated to try new things. I'd have more motivation and energy to get up and tackle each day, to go to my tasks with more gusto and energy. And I think overall, yeah, I'd feel lighter and I'd just feel happier about things and not so caught up and so sort of feeling like there's a dark cloud over me. I think life would be really, really good if I let go of this thought. So there you go. You can see the process here and how it works. Now, this is something that can have a dramatic impact just working through it once, but for some of those deep-seated stories that you're telling yourself, you may have to go through it a few times. And that's okay. Work through it. Vent everything out on that piece of paper, work through the questions, and start dissolving those false stories that you're telling yourself. So start changing your perception so you can change your reality. Learning to manage our mental health is such an important part of health and such a big thing that we do here at the clinic. I talk a lot about getting the body out of the stress response because on a day-to-day basis, I see the physical manifestations of people who don't manage and handle their stress well. So in these trainings, I'm doing my best to bring you some of the best tools that I've come across in my 20 years of studying healthcare and seeing what can make the biggest difference and help people better manage their stress, live better and happier lives. All right? So let me know how you go with this training. I'd be really keen to hear your feedback. Chat to me next time that we're in clinic. Thanks again for watching and I will speak to you soon.